the PCAM Podcast, recorded at Wave Studios, a sound design and mixing facility with a worldwide reputation for audio excellence. The PCAM Podcast. Hi there, welcome to another PCAM podcast. This time we're going to talk about gear and technology. I've got Simon, Chris and Sally here with me, who are more sort of gear-friendly PCAM committee members, including myself, Blair, as well. So, just to start us off, what do you guys think that you need gear-wise, the kind of the basics for getting into the industry, and what's a sort of essential piece of equipment?
Computer.
Obviously a computer, yes.
And that's about it these days, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. Computer, copy of GarageBand, go.
Well, let's pull back from that.
No, I'm joking. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's an interesting thing, and it's a whole other debate. But of course, a long time ago, there was a huge barrier to entry, which the cost and size of equipment, effectively was there, and that barrier to entry really, to a large extent, no longer exists, and that is, in many ways, a good thing. I mean, years ago there was a fantastic poster which I remember seeing on the side of the bus, and it was advertising the early days of broadband. It wasn't even broadband, but it was Busby. Remember the BBC had Busby the bird, and the slogan was "Geography is history." Right. And at the time, it really wasn't, but now it kind of really is. Yeah. So, I can be abroad. I mean, I was at the Cannes Film Festival a few years ago, and I was on a panel, and somebody was asking about portability, and I had to rush straight from the airport, and I had my studio because I had to do a short film whilst I was there, right. And I had it in my carry-on, and I had microphones, and I had everything there to do the gig in a small carry-on, and it's half that size now again. Yeah. Really, to be honest.
So having a computer, having a keyboard linked up to it usually, because most people play piano when they're composing.
Having said that, actually, I managed to write a 3-minute piece of music for a film pitch on just a laptop without a keyboard. Yeah. And I didn't get it, but
right. Is this when you were on? Is this when you were on a holiday?
Yeah,
I think
it sounded all right. I mean, it's amazing.
Very fiddly, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very fiddly.
Sort of an inbuilt thing,
and I didn't get it.
Yeah. So getting a bit more geeky, are you guys Logic users or Pro Tools or old school pen and paper?
Logic.
You as well, Simon? Yeah, I'm a Logic man as well. I find it. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I met one of our writers. In fact, he said discussing it the other day, and he actually thinks that the PC programs, which I can't even remember what it's called, that's how Mac-driven I am. But he actually thinks it's, in a way, that the Logic program kind of funnels your creativity, offers you so much so easily that you just use, unwittingly use presets.
There are certainly some great plugins that come with Logic, including some of the synths and things like that.
Yeah, but having said that, the danger is, as we were just saying, that you can't have a cookie cutter sound, and the truth is that when we're all kind of using the same sound palettes to a large extent, it's important to find a way to try and personalize what you do. I mean, I'm a guitarist first and foremost, and I think increasingly one of the things that I'm sure we all do as well, but I write library music, production music, and I've become increasingly cognizant of the idea that if there are things that I can do that not everybody can do, I need to make sure I can do them, because at the end of the day, if all I'm doing is sitting there programming something, what's to differentiate me, really? Okay, there's an aesthetic or whatever it may be, but if I can play an instrument reasonably well, then I should. And having live instruments on something actually sorts the men from the boys or girls, as the case may be. But I think that's something really to be said, because at the end of the day, if what you're doing, I mean, it's interesting. I sent some stuff to a friend of mine that I've been working on, and it was library stuff, and he came back and he said, really like it. It's not Me Too music. And I think there's an awful lot of Me Too. I do that. We've all got the same sounds. Yeah. And I think it's absolutely imperative that people find a way to differentiate their voice from those of the people that they're pitching against.
And that's so often about playing things or hitting things, isn't it, really? To try and create some sort of slightly more interesting vibe. It's about looking at maybe a room. You might have an upright piano at home, which is kind of out of tune, but the sitting room you play it in has got a fantastic kind of atmosphere. And I think he's looking around for tricks like that, which really give your music some sort of flavour and character.
And there's a lot to be said for experimentation with live instruments. I mean, I can't tell you how many shakers we've made out of different bits of stuff in the house.
Yeah.
Like various houses, various rooms in the houses. And I think it engages you more as a composer. It makes it more fun. Like, I often write with my co-founder Nick Rundle, and the stuff that we write just playing instruments, even if it's a ukulele and someone's holding a bag of beans, that's a lot more inspiring.
Some of my best tracks were ukulele and a bag of beans.
There you go, advertising music in a nutshell.
But that's it. I mean, good music to picture is all about character. It's about particularly in advertising, you have maybe 5 seconds to captivate people, and if you come up with an interesting sound or a familiar instrument but recorded in a different way, or a different effect on it, or it can be the most simplest things that really sort of that appeal.
I'm sure we've all got anecdotes, but the one that sprung to my mind was an effect that I wanted of a sort of a whoosh flyby, which I ended up, it could have been the most expensive sound effect ever, because I ended up with a squash racket whooshing past the U87 microphone, sort of like millimetres away to create this thing. It's like, oh yeah, right, another half an inch, and that's going to cost me £1,500. Yeah. But I think that it's really important, and when you say just a computer and a keyboard, I mean a sound card and decent microphones and live instruments are an essential part of the thing, and I think if you are just a software person, you're making it very hard for yourself to really create a sound which is you. I'm not impossible, but I mean, there's software packages which we all know, like what's the Synthesia, is it, or the big symphonic?
Symphobia.
Symphobia. It's a film score in a box.
It's a very recognisable.
Very recognisable, and every now and then you hear things and you think, my God, you've heard that sample on 1,000 bloody things, and it's just like, come on, guys, get to the I mean, and I think that it's just essential that you find your voice.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of imperfection, which I think sort of leads on to that. Like, the problem with these sampled instruments is that they are perfect, but I mean, like Simon was saying about the sort of the honky-tonk piano in your front room, like, it might not be the Steinway recorded in
or Midiable.
Yeah, it might not be Midiable, but it's going to give you a much more sort of a sound full of character, really, and you're going to get that from the imperfections. So if it is something like a ruler being sort of smashed off a desk or something, you're going to get a unique sound which might not, but you're going to get something which is far more unique, and if you layer that up, you can find a much more interesting sound than just going for something out of the box. But having said that, obviously it's a great place to start, play around with what's in there, but get some mics, get some instruments, and just start experimenting. And
there's definitely something to be said for small software developers that make really, really interesting specific plugins. Like my favourite reverb, which is Valhalla Reverb. Like, it's just this guy who's just an expert at reverbs, and they're absolutely amazing, and they're really cheap.
Yeah, me too. You just blown it now. We've all got it now.
Valhalla.
Everyone's got it now.
I'm pushing it. They're really cheap. He just sends you the link. Really? They're amazing. They're great, and just things like that. I mean, I don't. Nick, my the co-founder, he's the proper geek, and he finds out everything about all this stuff, and I don't have to do anything. I just like it.
I think I can't remember who said it, but it's true that I mean, that software tends to want you to work in a certain way. And I remember a friend of mine who's a special effects director, movie sort of animation guy, coming to my studio and looking at my program and saying that very often he's directing special effects sequences with lots of young programmers working with software, and he finds his job to stop them going in the direction that the software that they're using wants to take them. And I think that's very important. And what you're saying about imperfection, I spend a hell of a lot of time, and I'm sure we actually all do, trying to make it sound like it's not just me in a room with a machine. I mean, it's got to sound like it's real, proper, live, breathing, organic.
You need that physicality, don't you?
Physicality, that things are going on.
And I'd say also something that really works well for me, better than always looking at the picture when I'm writing, and writing to it, and often forgetting the click. Like, we all have the click and a need for the right tempo, but I find especially, certain kinds of things really lend to it, but just playing to the actual...
improvising.
Or playing the thing that you've written whilst looking at it, it really helps personalise and give you a good arc. It gives you the right arc, and it's a bit fiddly, if it comes to editing. But then actually, I'll just say this can't be edited. Sorry, it's all live.
Play it again.
Yeah, exactly. But there are implications. But I definitely think that it's worth it.
But I mean, you started
stuck.
talking about GarageBand, and I know it was a joke.
Yeah.
But the truth is, one of the things also that I've said to people in the past, and sometimes you get, I'm sure we've all had them, sort of demo submissions from young people who want to get into the business, and they're writing what they think of as advertising music, and it's bloody horrible. And I remember saying to one kid, I said, can you imagine if you succeed with this bunch of music that is your ill-conceived idea of what advertising music is, spending the rest of your life churning that rubbish out?
That's a really good point, actually. I asked a couple of friends of mine, a couple who have been writing songs for years. They're a fantastic singer-songwriter team, and I asked them to do a couple of demos, and the demos were awful, were absolutely dreadful, like really cheap and nasty. And I said, why would you produce that? You produce so many good things. And they said, well, because we thought that's what advertising music sounds like. And that's really one thing to be aware of, is that while a lot of advertising music ends up being maybe awful, actually compromised. It may have started out, it often starts out in a really good place. And because of the process of clients and creatives or whatever getting involved, it can be dismantled and ruined. So be original. I think. I think that's a perfect thing. Find your voice.
Don't write music that should never exist. That's what we call it. And that music should never exist.
Yeah, try and write music that you want to write as well.
Or you want to hear.
Simon said, because otherwise you will wake up 5 years later and people will ask you to do the same thing again, and you are writing stuff that you don't want to write, and that's not fun. That's not why you got into the business in the first place.
And if it doesn't get picked and you've written something that you really like, you don't care as much. Like, I don't.
No.
I just think, well, that's your loss.
I also think, something
point.
I say occasionally if I'm talking to young, groups of kids doing things, is that, owning a piece of software no more makes you a composer than owning a biro makes you a novelist.
Word.
Oh.
And so
good place to end.
If you're a composer, that's your job. There's a good friend of ours, Richard Jakes, a very good composer, who makes a really interesting distinction. He said, "Are you a cook or are you a chef?"
Nice.
And I think, we all want to be chefs, and there's a lot of people in this business who are chefs. You can't afford to enter it if you're only a cook.
Yeah. Well, that's a great anecdote, and I think we'll end on that. There's a lot more stuff we could have got into. Perhaps we might come back and revisit sort of gear at a later date and go into the more sort of nitty-gritty, what's your favourite piece of gear type stuff. But for the moment, that's all we've got time for, the more sort of theory aspect of everything. Thanks for listening once again. A big wave to wave, as we always do. Thank you for letting us record at their excellent facilities, and check out more about PCAM at www.pcam.co.uk, and as always, find us on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
The PCAM Podcast.